Today, I want to respond to this really powerful documentary called Survivor Mary Knight Abused and Rituals by My Parents that I'd watched a couple of years ago or so, and it was so profoundly, deeply healing. And it documents the story of this woman, Mary Knight, who is an adult survivor of what is often referred to as satanic ritual abuse, but it's essentially just a group of humans getting together to sexually abuse children and creating a space where they can support each other in doing that and feel less of their own shame or the parts of them that don't want to do it, like feel quieten those by getting together in company of each other, which is really the essence of rituals. Like rituals allow us to come together and strengthen a seed in us, and this seed can either be a positive seed or a negative seed. But when humans come together with a certain intention for a ritual, whatever that seed is that intention references gets strengthened in everyone. It's like the power of being in somatic osmotic connection with each other. Yeah, I remember when I used to read or hear about these stories of like satanic ritual abuse of kids, sexual abuse, I just would ignore them. Like before I started recovering my own repressed sexual trauma, I was just like, oh, this sounds weird and odd, and does it really happen? It sounds so improbable. It still feels pretty like shocking to me, and yet I'm certain it happens to some extent because I've definitely experienced in my own journey this sense that my grandfather and his friend were connecting in brotherhood, or they were having their moments of feeling seen and met in the darkness of their souls in each other's company in the act of raping me together. Like that's what it was bringing them, like this sense of lonely men like connecting in brotherhood. And I have suspected since that it's possible that there might have been other men, and it's also possible that they might have made money out of it, but I don't have good memories, good recollection of that. And there's hurdles for involving other men, and because it increases likelihood of the cat spilling out of the bag. There's also hurdles for like trying to make money out of it. But it seems feasible, or at least I see how child sex trafficking can emerge. And yeah, really the point of sharing all of these wonderings of how people start sexually abusing children is that it's like really important in my mind to humanize these people because they are humans. That doesn't mean we forgive them for what they did. Like they have to, I mean, we don't really have the power to forgive anyone. Like the Lord Saturn, Shani, the ruler of karma, ensures that everyone pays their bills, pays the bills of their actions. But what I've noticed is that the more I can really see how I'm gonna switch off the music. The more we can see the humanity in people who abuse, like people who do evil, the better judgments we can then hold. Like we can then create better systems where the abuse stops. The more we demean them, dehumanize them, other them, the more it just perpetuates, because next time we cross paths with someone who's doing the same thing, we will miss the signs, miss the telltale signs that they are engaged in abuse. Because in our mind, we have created this fantasy or this story that, people who sexually abuse children are not humans, and then we walk around with the assumption that we are interacting with humans, like humans that we meet on the street. So then the twain shall never meet. Like, both of these are very different mindsets. So then, if there is someone in your neighborhood who's sexually abusing a child, you will just never see that. You'll never see the very obvious signs of that happening around you, because you have dehumanized sexual perpetrators. So yeah, it's important to humanize everyone, and that's partly been the impetus for me to share about Trump too, because I find that Trump has been like very dehumanized by the left, and I really want to bring content that humanizes. That doesn't mean humans can't do horrible things. Like, all of the horrible things that happen in the world, in human society, are done by humans. So it's important to humanize everyone and then decide whether you align with them or not align with them. But once you humanize someone, you're able to do that from an open heart and clarity, because clarity, like full clarity, comes from an open heart. Otherwise, your fears just like use whatever knowledge you have to project outwards and just create illusions. Having said that, I'll probably do this in a few parts, because this is a pretty long documentary, but it is really worth watching, because Mary Knight goes and talks to a bunch of people. So she shares her own story. There's stories of other adult survivors, including like a famous Miss America who was one of the first people to speak up about incestual abuse, and thank God for her. And then she goes and interviews this group of humans who had created what was known as the false memory syndrome. And it was basically a think tank, a research organization, call it what you may, that was designed to create research to prove that recovered repressed memories of childhood sexual abuse are not true, like they are implanted, that phenomena is wrong, and they labeled it the false memory syndrome. And from my perspective, it was just a bunch of, actually not just from my perspective, I think this is, we'll get into it in the documentary, but it was a bunch of parents of children who were claiming that the parents had sexually abused them. Like, a bunch of these parents who had gotten legal cases against them from children banded together to create this organization. And it really brings to mind how wildly unique the US is in the ability to come together and collectively organize on all sorts of ridiculous subjects. Like, it's I'm calling it ridiculous subjects, but I really feel like it is such a great empowering aspect of American society that it allows humans to come together, organize, and make change for whatever purpose that change may be for. That's left up to the individual, and it's so empowering for the individual to decide what they want to do and reach out and find others who want to do the same thing, and then band together and create an entity that brings that vision forward. And it's really beautiful and powerful aspect of American society. So she goes and interviews all of these humans and talks to them about her experience, and it's like really fascinating to notice the engagement, and there's so many fascinating nuances to share there. that would be really fun to get into. Okay, let's watch the video. It's a great way to start off a reaction video. I think this is the most unique start to a reaction video.
Of extreme cruelty, including ritualistic abuse, body mutilation, child pornography, and incest.
Sometimes I could see the man, and I think it was the man's hand go up to the man's hand, see his shirt. I think it was my dad. I think it was my dad.
Wow, what a powerful like start. Like this I don't know how many of you caught that, but it was basically the moment of recovery of her repressed memories. She was in a psychotherapeutic hypnotic session and slowly getting to the memories of abuse, which I imagine would be the source of so many of her like difficulties and miseries and suffering in life. And she, I imagine like I'm filling in the gaps with my own felt sense of how this unfolds. I imagine that she got to this like dark place and started noticing like, exploring disgust or something in her genitals, and then noticed like a hand there. And that itself is such a shocking moment to realize that some somatic experience that you often experience in your genitals, and suddenly like a light bulb turns on and you notice someone else's presence there, and it just clicks and you're like, oh my god, someone masturbated me or touched me inappropriately. And then it's so beautiful how the therapist just holds space for that, doesn't freak out, doesn't panic. It's such a moment of panic to go from, oh, what is this ickiness I feel around my genitals, to, holy shit, there is something here, someone else here that shouldn't be here. The therapist was just, calmly, okay, go up the man's hand, like, see his shirt. And, she's like guiding Mary in noticing subtle details. And when the moment Mary sees the shirt in her memory, she's like, fuck, I know who this is. Because it's so, we always know we always know who it is. It's like that was my experience of recovery too. I was just like, fuck, of course, of course, duh, it was my it was like so obvious. Like the moment it emerges, like, how the hell could I forget this? How the hell could I repress it? Whew. Yeah, quite a clip.
Was I abused when I was a kid? If someone had asked me that before I was 37 years old, I would have said no.
Mary Knight was a social worker herself, and she's telling her story to try and break the abuse cycle for others.
Oh, we have a family of deer that started living here before we did. And
beautiful surroundings. The one thing her life now and her life then have in common.
my sister and I would go just exploring through the woods, and that was kind of our getaway.
Otherwise, this Oregon City filmmaker's early life was something out of a horror film.
I had an extremely abusive childhood. I was prostituted as a child. My parents produced child pornography and used me as in it.
Mary Knight didn't even remember that abuse until she was in her 30s.
What was your first reaction to finding out I was doing this project?
I thought, who the heck is she that would do something like this?
Did it make you not trust me?
It did. Because I thought, well, what if you'd already made your decision that what you'd recovered were false memories? So I thought you were a false memory person, and I was very, very careful about you.
Just in simple terms, what do you think?
Yeah, here I want to point out this this lady who's also an incest survivor thinks Mary is a false memory person, and this refers to the schism in mainstream psychology, I think in the early 90s, and there's like Wikipedia articles on this, and I'm actually not sure if this like schism has been fully resolved yet in academic psychology, but the schism was around there was a group of humans who believed that recovered memories of sexual abuse were false memories implanted by therapists. And there was a group that are not necessarily implanted by therapists, I suppose, but they were just false memories, hallucinations, which, at one point my dad asked that to me, he revealed his like wondering if my recovered memories were hallucinations because of drugs that I took, which was very triggering for me to hear at that point that he said it, and he compared it to like my 90-year-old grandma who sometimes sees things in the corner of a room. And it's so interesting, this like subject of like hallucinations, because it assumes that only the physical realm that all other humans can see, I mean, not necessarily even all other humans, but most humans can see, because blind people can't see the physical realm either. Only that realm is real, and the spirit realm, like it's entirely possible that my grandma was seeing something real in the spirit realm that is not real. So there's that underlying assumption there. And then there is this like, what even qualifies as drugs? Is alcohol a drug? Is sugar a drug? Is marijuana a drug? Is LSD a drug? Is cocaine a drug? It's like, what is drug? What is medicine? Question is unresolved, the very least. So yeah, there were some of these like, I would call them logical inconsistencies in his questioning of me or wondering. That itself tends to trigger me, like when humans present statements that are full of base assumptions that they haven't fully seen. Like it's very triggering for me for some reason. But then, on top of that, there was a dismissal of my experience and how I received his wondering. We were able to move through that trigger. Yeah, mostly I've just told my parents like, hey, this is the phase of relating we are in. Like there's going to be moments that I get triggered, and you're just going to have to figure out how to navigate those. And that doesn't mean that I don't love you or I don't want to be with you. And just the unfortunate reality of where we are at. So there was this schism in academic psychology, and if you've read what is that book, The Body Keeps the Score, the author has a Dutch name, Bessel van der Kolk, something like that, talks about how there were textbooks back in like the 70s or 80s which talked about the possible benefits of incest, which is just fucking ridiculous to me. And I blame Sigmund Freud mostly for this, because he was doing research around, I mean, there's so many places you could put the blame on, but Sigmund Freud's work has had a significant impact on like Western psychology, and my sense is that he, take it as a conspiracy theory if you want, but my sense is that he he himself had experienced sexual abuse as a child, and he was exploring all of these like women with sexual abuse histories who were marked as hysteric, but then because he could not, and he had like almost concluded that in all of these cases these women are reacting to their incestual sexual trauma coming up. But then he flipped from that to the Oedipus and Electra complexes, where he said that these drives are innate, and that likely the abuse stories were false. And there is, subtleties here to unpack. Like, I'm not sure if he fully flipped or if he presented the idea that the drives were innate, which is possible. But then the abuse happens. Yeah, it's difficult to tell if the drives are innate or not in infants, in children. It's really hard to like conclusively tell. Like that theory can coexist with the theory that incestual sexual abuse or childhood sexual abuse can lead to hysteria. Okay, we have only gotten through like 2 minutes of this video, and it's a 22-minute video already. I'm gonna have to pause here because I'm doing this reformative justice training with an organization called Hidden Water, which holds circles for sexual abuse survivors, perpetrators, their family members. It's a really beautiful organization, and I'm gonna do a facilitator training with them, which starts in 3 minutes. So that's it for today. I'll continue watching the video and sharing thoughts. There's so much to share on this subject that we have only finished 2 minutes of the documentary, and it's a 20-minute video already. All right. Thank you for watching.